This is an excerpt from the novel A Road Paved in Iron by me, Don Corcoran. A Road Paved in Iron is the first novel in a series of the Voodoo Westerns about Noah, who's a black Union soldier coming down from the north into Louisiana, same time the Union Army is camped in the Gulf of Mexico. And he's given leave to go search for his mother, who he believes is a slave somewhere in Louisiana. And this is from chapter 2. So Noah took a deep breath and turned around. He eyed the man before him. I don't know what you fellas want. I didn't come to start trouble. The tall one looked Noah up and down.
Then why did you come, boy? We certainly didn't ask you to.
Three of them laughed. Noah didn't. And after a moment, they all could see Noah was settling into his gun, and they all got quiet. At this point, the roughnecks were in the center of the muck-ridden path, looking up the fairway to the rail station in the distance. The taller of the bunch had Noah in his right, and from his left, he heard a voice. "Put down the shooters, boys." Sheriff Hayes was behind a pile of split logs piled neatly in the rough pallet. "Nigel, take your friends, wander down to the saloon, tell Gordy to give you a swig on me." Nigel was the talker, lean and sinewy. He had a mouth full of crooked teeth and his hat curled up on one side. He had not worked in weeks and not washed either. Up each morning in the main room of the flop house, he'd eat a couple of yesterday's biscuits and whatever jam or coffee was left behind before Beauregard cleaned up and put out breakfast for other tenants. Most days they walked across the road to the sun as the sun rose behind the livery, parked themselves on a couple of chairs in front of Miller's barber shop, and whiled the days away as if a job was going to slither up and bite one of them on the ankle. Hayes figured this was entertainment, but he couldn't be more wrong. Nigel and the other boys, a rustler calling himself Steer, Manda Whip, and Nigel's cousin Horace, were thinking with their guts, all turning and speaking morning after morning. Only so long a man can eat biscuits and old jellies before he starts thinking of other ways to fill that emptiness. Nigel had his eye on Noah's rig. He saw the leather gun belt as a pound of bacon sizzling on a pan over an open flame, and a feathered bed where he'd find sport with that new filly over at Muster's Inn. Horace, on the other hand, saw a bottle of amber juice in the holster. Didn't quit for days, or until Horace didn't care if it were morning or night. He just wanted to hunker down next to that piano and drink his worries away, having earned the right to squat with hard-earned cash he'd get at Noah's expense. Now, this was business, and until Hayes came along, they figured no one would care if they bushwhacked a dark boy packing heat, a business that they were going to see through to the end.
Now, Sheriff, we were just doing our civil duty, relieving the community of that there threat.
Nigel's neck swung around to motion to Noah. He kept an eye on the heater at the black boy's side. "Well, thank you, boys, but I think I'll handle it from here," said Hayes, still half behind the logs, with his pistol in his palm and at his hip.
We'll be on our way, Sheriff, but you won't begrudge us our reward.
Hayes' eyes narrowed. "Get on out of here," he said in a low tone. Nigel's eyes slipped from Noah to Hayes at that.
Why, Sheriff, while I won't pretend to be a learned man, my mama never saw any use for books and whatnot. I think you're forgetting your numbers. You see, there's 3 of us and 1 of you.
2, added Noah. Nigel swung his head slowly over to Noah once more and glared at the man, and the sheriff spoke up. "That's enough from you. I'll speak to you in a minute." Hayes' eyes were off the roughnecks long enough for Steer to bring the whip to bear. Crack! A gash appeared in Hayes' hand, and his gun spun off, sputtering into the muck a few paces from the cover of the logs. Nigel was looking around. He saw Hayes without his gun and spun to put the black man down. Time Nigel had his hand on his heater, he turned, the cold iron pressed up against his temple, and the sound of Noah cocking his 6-gun. Everyone stopped for a moment and looked at one another warily. Hayes eyed his piece lying on the ground. Horace had his pistol out, and his head snapped frantically between Hayes and Nigel's predicament. Noah broke the standoff by hauling off and bringing the heavy barrel of his peacemaker down onto Nigel's crown. The man became a heap on the muddy floor. Hayes took the opportunity to dive for his gun. Horace shot. sending Hayes scurrying back into his hole. Seeing that Hayes was tucked away without a way to retaliate, Horace turned his attention on Noah. The end of Noah's pistol erupted. Horace was left with a mouthful of smoke. He looked down at his chest, his pistol dangling from one finger. The damage was mingled with grime, coffee stains, and yesterday's breakfast, and it took a while for the dark cloud to grow from the wound. We'll do about 2 more over the course of the month and get a sort of sense of what's going on in the story and the voices and tenor. Hope you enjoy the writing and have a fantastic day.